Welcome to Phorge Mathematics. I'm Ryan. So today's topic, we're going to go over the number line and absolute value. So why it matters. So every time you track stats, measure distance, or compare performance, elevation gain if you're going on a hike, yards behind, so if you're trying to go for that first down and you lose yards, weight difference, so let's say that you're starting at 100 pounds and you lose or you gain. So that's when you can use a number line, and which is the backbone of all these different ideas. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Phorge.
Okay, so by the end of this video, you will be able to plot and identify any real number on the number line. You'll be able to compare and order real numbers, including negatives. You'll be able to calculate absolute value, which is just distance from 0. And then you'll also be able to apply absolute value to real-world distance problems. So part 1, what is the number line? A number line shows all the real numbers in order, from the smallest, which in this case would be negative infinity, all the way up to positive infinity. And so you just draw a line, a horizontal line, and then it goes from left to right. So you start with negative 5. You start all the way at negative infinity, but I'm going to start for negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. 0 is the center. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So positive numbers go to the right of 0, and negative numbers go to the left of 0. And so the farther right you go, the more positive you go. And the farther left you go, the more negative you go, the smaller numbers. So think of the line of scrimmage at 0. So this is a line of scrimmage. You have offense and defense on one side, and as the offense gain yard, those are positive. But let's say you get a sack, boom, you lose negative 3 yards. And so just think of it like the field and the line of scrimmage, and then you can either go positive when you gain yards, or you can go backwards and lose yards, which would be negative. Okay, so comparing and ordering. To plot a number, you need to find its position on the line and mark it with a dot. So to compare two numbers, the number on the far right is always greater. So something that may be counterintuitive is, let's say you have negative 10, negative 1, and 0. So even though 10 is bigger when it was bigger than 1 when they're both positive, negative 10 is smaller than negative 1. And so when we're ordering numbers, think of it like temperatures. So when it's negative 1 degrees Fahrenheit, that's hotter than if it were to be negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the same idea when you're comparing the number line. Part 3, absolute values. So all absolute value is it's the distance from 0 on the number line. And the distance is always positive. You can't walk negative 3 miles. So, and the way that we annotate it is using these vertical bars right here. So in this case, negative 8 is equal to 8. The absolute value of 5 is 5, and the absolute value of 0 is 0. And then when you see a negative in front of the bars like that, that means it's a negative result. So negative is outside the bar. So that's the only time that you can use that. Or that's the only time when you're using absolute values that the outcome will be negative. So just to visually confirm it, let's use negative 8. So you have negative 8, negative 7, negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. And so when we do absolute value, what is the distance? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Boom. So that's why the value is 8. So to use a real world situation, so let's say that we have a drone flying 200 feet above the ocean, and then below we have a submarine that has dove 200 feet. So the drone is a positive 200 feet, which would be the absolute value, and the submarine is negative 200 feet. However, they're both 200 feet from sea level. So absolute measures how far, not necessarily which direction. Okay, let's move on. Let's work through this first problem. First, let's draw a number line. Let's start with -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So let's find all the numbers that we have in our set, and we're going to circle them. So -3 is here. 5 is here. -1 is here. 0 is here. And -4 is here. So when we rearrange them, we now just have to go from order them all the circle numbers that we have from left to right, or least to greatest. So we have -4, -3, -1, 0, and then 5. Okay, so we can still use the same number line that we had before, and now we can just add -6 and -7 so that we can answer example number 2. So the two numbers that we're looking at are -7 and -2. So which one is further left? That's right, it's -7. -2 is further right. So in this case, the greater number would be -2. Okay, so now let's go over absolute value. So remember how we did it before, where we did the different hops to figure out exactly how these work. So -12, so no matter what it is, -12 is 12 units away from 0. So in this case, the absolute value will be 12. Next, we have 9. So 9 units is, or 9 is 9 units from 0. So now we have 9. Negative absolute value of 6. So remember how we talked earlier about that if the negative is outside the absolute value, that means that the answer is going to be negative. So 6, the absolute value of 6 is 6 units away from 0, and then we add the negative in front of it. So that's going to be -6. Okay, this one's a little bit tricky, so let's take our time with this one. So let's start with just what's inside the absolute value. So we have -5. So whenever you see two negatives like this, they just cancel out and they both become positive. So now we're looking for the absolute value of 5. And so the absolute value of a positive number is just that number because it's 5 units away from 0. So the answer is 5. Okay, so we have some more. Let's go over some more common mistakes that could happen. Okay. -7 is not greater than -2 because 7 is greater than 2. That's wrong. When you plot it out, that's one of the work problems that we did. -7 is actually less than -2. So the absolute value makes things positive. That's not true. The value of a number can still be negative. It's just saying, hey, -7 is 7 units away from 0. So distance is always positive, but the absolute value doesn't make things positive. So Next, negative absolute value is not equal to the absolute value of negative x. So essentially what that's saying is we just want to find the negative value of the distance, and it is what this first part is saying. But the second part is saying we want to know the absolute value of a negative value. So the absolute value of 0 does not equal 0. That's wrong. The absolute value of 0 is 0. That means it's 0 units away from 0. It can't be, if you're on the line of scrimmage, you're not 1 yard away from it or 1 yard behind it. You are on the line of scrimmage, so you're 0 yards away from the line of scrimmage. Now, simplifying inside the bars before evaluating. So like we did on this problem where we had -5 parentheses -5, you want to simplify it as much as you can and then find the absolute value from there. Okay, so we have some more practice problems, so go ahead and pause this video and work through this problem. Okay, hopefully you took some time and you're able to find the answers, and here are the answers right here. Okay, so here's what you locked in today. The number line is ordered, so from the right is greater and the left is less, always. So if you have a number on the left and a number on the right, this one on the right is always going to be greater. And negative flips this idea. So what do I mean by that? -1 and -10. -10 is over here, so which means it's less than -1. So it flips your instincts. So if you ever get lost, just go ahead and use the number line to make sure you stay on track. And so the absolute value is the distance from 0, and it's always non-negative. The only time that you were going to have an answer that is negative is if that negative is outside the absolute value, outside of those bars. So thanks for joining me today. And so what we got coming up next in the next video is going to be, we're going to be learning about the orders of operations. And when you have multiple different operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, what order should we do those in if we have multiple going on in one equation? So if this helped you, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe. I post multiple videos a week. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I read every single one I can. You can find me at Phorge Mathematics on YouTube, Phorge Mathematics on Instagram, Phorge_math on X. And if you have any questions that are a little more detailed and you want a personal answer, you can email me at phorgemath@gmail.com. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next one.